This is pretty good numbers still, 7.1%. Maybe expectations got a little bit ahead of themselves.
Yeah, Rich, I mean, private consumption and investment disappointed, but I think some perspectives needed here. 7.1% growth, that's faster than China's 6.7%. In fact, India grew faster in the second quarter than any Asian country. In fact, it was one of the strongest in the world. So some perspective is needed. And looking forward, right, we think that there's good reasons why private consumption should pick up. We've got the 7th Pay Commission wage increases. We've got the good monsoon that should help rural consumption. And we're also hearing on the ground that more awards have been made for projects for government infrastructure spending on roads and rails. So bottom line is we're comfortable with 7.3% growth forecast this year, 7.7 next year. It's still, to us, looking like a good story, particularly from a global perspective.
Well, Rob, the thing is, you know, if you look at nominal growth, it's not that great, is it? Because, I mean, the inflation component is still large, given, of course, inflation has come down from a scary level to something which is pretty reasonable right now.
I mean, you don't really want excessive nominal growth because that means that inflation will be too high. I think what India ultimately is trying to achieve in the long run here is sustainable growth. They don't want what's happened in the past, which is boom-bust cycles. So they want to get inflation down, and you know, our forecast is that in the coming months, between now and the end of the year, inflation's going to fall very sharply from a bit above 6% to below 5%, and this weaker growth number will help that. And you know, I think the new RBI governor is going to be a very steady hand to help ensure that the economy manages decent growth with low inflation and a current account deficit that does not get out of hand. And I think that over time is going to be very positive for investors, particularly long-term foreign investors. India, you know, stands out from that perspective. There's not many EM economies which are growing at a decent clip with inflation, current account under control.
Rob, the thing is here, you know, we've got, of course, Raghuram Rajan, a couple of more days left in the job for him, and we've got, of course, Urjit Patel coming in to take over. Now, what's he going to do? Is it continuation here of policy in essence, and therefore adding a bit of confidence to the investor in India?
I think so. I think out of all the potential candidates for this RBI governor, I think Patel is probably the closest that comes into similar to Rajan. So I think, you know, continuing to be aiming to get inflation over time down towards the midpoint target of 4%. And I think a safe pair of hands. I'd say the one thing he needs to work on is communication. To be fair, as Deputy Governor, you didn't have to be out in the limelight as much, but I think for the markets it's going to be very important that the RBI remains transparent and clear on its goals. And I think the other key thing, Rich, which doesn't get as much focus, is the Monetary Policy Committee. So India is forming a Monetary Policy Committee of 6 members. We know that Patel will be on it, and probably Michael Patra from the RBI. We don't know who the other 4 are. That's going to be very interesting as well to determine the outlook for monetary policy. Our forecast right now is there will be one more interest rate cut in the 4th quarter, and then a long extended on hold through the whole of 2017 to make sure inflation and inflation expectations keep coming down.
Now, the Modi government had a significant win with the introduction, or should I say the passing of the GST bill through Parliament. It's got it all to do to get it past the states now. But it is reform, and it is reform on the table, slowly, though.
Yep, I mean, that's right. And again, I would relate it. I talked before about Indian growth being higher than, you know, most other countries in the world. I would say also on the reform side, it's slowly, but it's actually making more progress than I think many other emerging markets. You talked about the GST, which has passed through, still some way to go, but also the bankruptcy bill. You know, we have an Asia League table for the countries in the region between leaders, middle and laggards in terms of not just the growth outlook, but also the fundamentals and reforms, we've just decided to upgrade India into the leaders camp with Indonesia and the Philippines. So only 3 in the leaders camp, Malaysia in the middle, all the rest in Asia are in the laggards. So clearly shows to you that
including China, Rob?
we do see India as one of the positives. Yes, including China in the laggards.
Why? I mean, still we're looking at 6.5% growth. That's a fair old clip.
Yep, it's a pretty decent clip on growth, but our view is that it is going to continue to slow down. And I guess our concern is the quality of the growth and the uncertainties and risks in the outlook for China, including, I think, the rapid build-up of credit and also uncertainty about how the property market is going to play out. You know, in terms of reforms as well, SOE restructuring, dealing with deleveraging, it's been, you know, less clear. I contrast that with India, where I think there's been a lot of work in reconstructing state bank loans, and I think it's very transparent. It's out in the open. It's negative in the near term, but dealing with the issue much more clearly and transparently, I think, is positive in the long run for India.